It's month in review time, so today we are going to be diving into the past month of March, talking about my favorite videos that I made, talking about some of the new channels I'm watching, and at the end of the video, we're going to have the movies that I've watched and a little bit of a review for those people who like to follow along. My name is Brian, you're watching Game Brigade, let's hit it. Okay, so thank you guys for watching this month in review. As we talk about, we are going to be diving into several of these categories. If you are interested in that movie section, it's going to be at the end of the video. Timestamps down below for your convenience. So to start off, videos of the month. This was my worst month in a very long time for releasing content here on the Game Brigade channel. For that, I am sorry. I went to Dice Tower, I got sick. And I got sick on the way back, or I might have been sick, I don't know, halfway through Dice Tower. We'll talk about that when we do our topic of the video, which is the Dice Tower recap. And it just kind of really hindered my overall production for this month, really badly. And we'll talk about some of the things that I wish I could have done better. But in terms of videos this month that were launched, I'm going to cheat a little bit and sneak in a little bit of February as well. We had our top 50 games of all time, starting from the year 2023. So this was a 5-video series where we did 50 to 41, all the way down from 10 to 1. I was very shocked at the lack of viewership or interaction with some of the earlier videos in that series. As we got down to the final two videos, 20 to 10 and 10 to 1, the interaction and the viewership definitely increased substantially. But I thought the other videos would have done a little better than they were. I originally had thought of next year doing 100, like the top 100, but it makes me question a little bit based on like how poorly 50 did, how poorly would 100 do? Like if you think about, you know, most people like to see the best games. So if you're already doing pretty poorly at the 50 mark, how bad would 100 do? I'm not sure. But the top 10 games video was probably my best video for the month. Again, we're sneaking a little bit into February. That launched on February 28th. I basically went in over the 10 games that I find to be the ones that I'm most in love with, that capture my attention. I did have an interesting point in that video where I talked about my number 0, which was going to be Magic the Gathering. I decided that Magic the Gathering has a special place in my heart for, you know, games that I've played, but I don't play it as much anymore. So I was just like, you know what, I don't want to have this on my list going forward. And it's a game that I do think is one of the best made games of all time, and I have a special place. So I decided to place it as my number 0. We'll see how long that lasts. Who knows? You never know if Magic will eventually get booted in the future videos or future years. But for now, that way I don't have to always have it somewhere in that top 10 region. We're going to place it number 0. For the 3 videos that officially went up in March, we had several back or skip videos, which I have changed the formula on how the back or skips are going to work. We originally were doing the final week of Kickstarter or GameFund, whatever crowdfunding videos or games that were ending, and just kind of giving you my quick hot takes on those ones. But I thought maybe it would be better if we had also what's new, what's exciting me that's new, and then finally wrap up on what's leaving. That way you kind of could double dip on either end, because I think that's a little bit more of a fleshed out crowdfunding roundup video. You skip the middle section which is mostly dead period on a crowdfunding campaign anyways. You hit the beginning when it's exciting. We want to talk about what's new and fresh with the game, and we talk about the end once we have most of the information and have a better understanding if this is a game we want to back or not. So that's kind of where I went with back or skip. We'll see how the trends progress with that, if people are enjoying that new formula and going from that. But for this month, my favorite video that was released this month was the Star Wars Unlimited First Impressions video. Star Wars Unlimited has very much captivated me this month. I'm very, very in love with the system, and it pretty much is the center point for all of my gaming focus as of right now, which is actually also hampering this channel a little bit, because when I want to play games or when I want to invest time into gaming, I'm wanting to play Star Wars Unlimited, which has been taking away from my board gaming. I've had this effect happen before with a lot of Fantasy Flight games, actually. When I play games like X-Wing, Star Wars X-Wing from Fantasy Flight, it became my only game I played. It was my sole focus. Same thing happened with Armada. And now here we are with Star Wars Unlimited, and it's taking my focus. Not to say that it's the only games I've been playing. I also forgot to write down my games we've been playing. We'll bring that up here in a second of what we've been playing. But it definitely has taken my attention in terms of some of the content I've been watching online, in terms of my Facebook feed, and what I've been most interested in engaging with has been Star Wars Unlimited. So the Star Wars Unlimited First Impressions video was kind of my hot take after playing at the pre-release. And then I have played a lot more since then, and we'll get into that. Coming into the goals for April. What do I want to see this month? So I want to, with the growth of the channel, obviously with a month in review, this is where you're hearing more of my behind the scenes takes of where I am at on this channel. For the goals of April, I know one of the most important things I have to get down, and I've said this multiple times, is the ability to have a consistent schedule for my audience so they know when things are going to go up or what to expect. You know, I know it's Monday at 10 a.m. or 11, wherever you're at in the United States or the world. Game Brigade's going to have a video up, and it's going to be, say, a backer skip. I've been very much really trying to hammer down the Monday backer skip videos so that people know that those are going to be live on Monday morning. For the month of April, my goal is 12 videos minimum. That means 3 videos a week for this month. So that's my goals. I want to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's been my kind of attempted schedule for the past 4 years, as long as I've been doing this channel. But I haven't been as successful in being consistent. So instead of being like, that's going to be the way it is from now, we're just going to say April. We're going to commit to 12 videos this month, April. Let's see if we can lock down that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The problem that I run into with the schedule is you're trying to figure out, well, what's the Wednesday video? What's the Friday video going to be? What's going to be captivating? Because I have also found that if you're doing continual series, like something that's this day, it's always going to be Monday. This day, it's always going to be something. People get less excited about that. They want more interesting stories or interesting videos being told. So we'll see what's going to happen. Today obviously is Wednesday that this is going live. Friday we will have probably a discussion piece talking about the hobby again. Probably going to be a shelf or sell or a keep or sell like segment where we're talking about things that are coming in, and that's that, because that's been a very big stressful period for me. My final thing is, during this period of 12 videos, are there any request videos? Is there any topical ideas that you guys as audience members would like to see? I would love to know in the comment section. Please leave your comments down below, or you can send me an email, you can DM me on Instagram, or you can message me on Discord. I'm very easily to get a hold of if you need to talk to me. So going from there, favorite new channels. I consume a lot of YouTube. YouTube is definitely one of my primary sources of entertainment when I'm not watching TV with my family. And well, let's be real, I also watch YouTube with my family. But I'm always scouring for new channels. My favorite new channel right now is That's a Good Card. It's a cEDH podcast, and that's with Kyle and Ya. These guys are a brand new channel, but they have a very, very good podcast setup where they basically will take a specific card. So let me give you an example. Let me just pull a card out of my deck box here. So they'll take a card. So here I have Death Trooper. Now this is for Star Wars Unlimited, but they play Magic the Gathering. And they'll basically try to convince the other person as to why this is a good card. And I really like the devil's advocate take where they're, really kind of bearing down and talking about the different types of interactions between just this card and the ways it can be played. It's a really, really interesting way of looking at the micro interactions in a game, in any game really, but in that specific game, Magic the Gathering, and how it macro can impact a field. So I really, really enjoy it. I'll have links down below for that channel if you're interested in competitive. They are located in the Seattle area, and I know they have a Discord as well. So let's go from there to the topic of the video, which is the Dice Tower West recap. So earlier last month in March was Dice Tower West, which is located in Las Vegas at the Rio. I went down with 2 other friends that are part of the Game Brigade crew here, and we stayed in a room together at the Rio and enjoyed some gaming weekends. Dice Tower West this year was an interesting one for me. One, it was backed up against GAMA, which is the Game Makers Association trade show, which a lot of people go to, and I was invited to that. I had a press pass for it, but I had already committed to going to Dice Tower West, and I didn't have the time to be able to go to Nashville for GAMA as well as going to Dice Tower West. The unfortunate part for that, in terms of the business side of Game Brigade, is I like to take the opportunity when I go to these conventions to do a little bit of Game Brigade related work, meaning talking with publishers, meeting people, doing some FaceTime with people that I don't get to normally see in person. That was very limited this year because of the trade show happening the same week. Most of the publishers and people that we work with were located back in Nashville at the GAMA show. And unfortunately, there wasn't much at Dice Tower for me to talk with. So that was a little bit of a bummer for me on the Game Brigade side. So going from that to the personal side, the Brian side, playing games. I will say it was like a iffy situation, not iffy situation, but more of like, I had fun, but I also was okay if I didn't play games. It's kind of a weird, something so weird to explain the way my brain was thinking down then. I definitely came back sick from Dice Tower, but I wonder if I got sick while at Dice Tower, because I definitely got very run down and tired coming to the end of it. I didn't have COVID or anything. I just had some chest cold, but I definitely got worn down, kind of like a flu, had some body aches, but definitely wore me out, and I didn't have the most fun. All I really wanted to do when I was there was to play Star Wars Unlimited, which I did. They had Night and Day Games was running the trading card portion of Dice Tower, so I was hanging out down there trying to get into Star Wars Unlimited events. Unfortunately, they were only running 1 event a day, and it was starting at 6 p.m. So it wasn't like I could just go down there whenever I wanted to and play games. It was like you had to schedule for it. It's also in the worst timing because that 6 p.m. is right around that dinner time period. So it really kind of ate into the enjoyment period of the evenings. The other thing that I was also trying to do was play some Blood on the Clock Tower. Blood on the Clock Tower obviously is one of my top games of all time, and I wanted to take an opportunity to play with other people because I play with the same group of people almost exclusively now when I'm playing Blood on the Clock Tower. So I wanted to take an opportunity to play that down there, and I was able to get in 2 different games total, which is not as much as I wanted to do. We'll talk about why. But from those 2 games, they were probably my least enjoyable games I've ever played, which is really unfortunate. And that did hamper my desire to want to keep gaming when you have 2 back-to-back games that are just unfun for a multitude of reasons. The first one just went really long. We had to redo the bag, basically choosing your role several times. We had people that were late showing up that joined in, so we had to restart over and over. In a game that started at 7 p.m., we didn't really start till 10, so you have hours of just sitting there doing nothing, and we got out of there at 11:30. So my entire night was wasted to play 1 game of Blood on the Clock Tower. So that was a really kind of unfortunate aspect in that regard. The second game I jumped into right when they were about to start. I was able to get in there, which is great. But they had an interesting kind of interaction. If you guys understand how Blood on the Clock Tower works, there's a storyteller who's integral to the system of the game, who's going to basically be the rules person for it. They tell you what information you have. They facilitate the gameplay so the players can solve the puzzle within their game. The storyteller can affect the game in some minor ways, but they must still be confined to the rules of the game. So if you have an ability that is no longer functioning or it isn't functioning that night, the storyteller can lie to you and give you false information, but it can only happen because the rules of the current game are allowing that to happen. The storyteller just can't lie to you. So in this game, though, there was two different storytellers, and one storyteller was able to tell the truth all the time. No matter what, he's always telling the truth. The other storyteller is always lying. And when you would wake up at night for your information, you would have to point to which storyteller you wanted to get the information from, but you don't know what storyteller is lying and which storyteller is telling the truth. And we're playing a custom script with more complex characters. I have no problem playing complex characters. We play those all the time in my local group. But when you're adding in an element now where the information, you don't know if the information you're getting is false just because it's false, or is it false because of an interaction in this game is causing it to be false, it adds a very weird layer to the system. And we came down to the final 3 players. I was one of the final players still left alive. And it just, I don't know. It left a sour taste in my mouth, and it felt in a way very, very difficult for any player to truly solve the puzzle, which is not fun. One of the things I enjoy about playing Blow on the Clock Tower is being able to figure it out because you're aligning the pieces. Why is this player saying this? Why is this player saying this? Okay, that means it has to be this system. And you start aligning the puzzle together. That's what I have fun with. And I felt like that game kind of took that away. And I noticed a lot of these Clock Tower games, we were doing alternative custom scripts that were kind of unique like that, or they were doing the beginner scripts and they were saying no players that have played before are allowed, which was weird. At least in the app, that was saying like new players only. So you're like, well, if I want to play a real game, I have to join that, but they don't want players that have played before, or I have to come over here and play a weird game with some weird rules that I just don't want to do because it's not the game that I play. So, that detracted from it. We also ran into a situation where we went down, the 3 of us, and I felt like each of us had kind of a different goal of what our intentions were going down to the con. And that makes an interesting question. When you go down with friends, what are your obligations to those friends? Do you stay together and play games just the same as you? Or do you go out and enjoy the con and do things solo? Do you have a mixture of those? Because I was the only one who wanted to play trading card games and Blow on the Clock Tower. The other people didn't really want to do that. One person wanted to go see shows and be involved in the Dice Tower studio people, watching their shows, seeing what they're doing, walking the booths. And the other person just wanted to play board games with our group of friends that we were there with. And so you have these kind of conflicting ideas, and you're trying to make everyone happy. And I think that also detracted a little bit from my enjoyment overall. Would I go back to Dice Tower West? I would. Because it wasn't very expensive overall, because we shared a room and we had one of the friends who drove, which was a huge help because it allowed us to travel and visit different types of restaurants without having to spend a ton of money at the hotel. But I definitely wish there was a bigger group so there was less reliance on certain people having to be a part of that group and for the enjoyment of everyone else. My most enjoyable parts of going to Dice Tower was actually going to lunch and exploring Vegas and going to places that were much better food than we have here locally at a pretty good price, as well as like we did a escape room. We do an escape room every time we go, and I had a ton of fun doing the escape room. Like, it was actually like the stuff outside of the con that I was having the most fun with. It was more of like a retreat from, the daily life, kind of a vacation. And it wasn't like I was really needing to play board games because I play a ton of board games when I'm home. So I don't know. Maybe I just needed a vacation at that point in my life, and that's kind of what detracted from me for Dice Tower. I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on this rambling if you are interested in sharing them. But that's going to wrap up the video for the main section. So if you're here for the movie reviews, I've got a lot of movies we've watched over the past month and a half since I've done this, and I can talk. And we're also going to talk about TV shows as well. So let me get some water here. Movies. As you guys know, we have been watching thriller-based movies, and that has been kind of the main thing that's been driving this retelling of movie reviews, has been talking about the thrillers we've been watching. So we decided to start with The Machinist this week or this month, and that is with Christian Bale. And effectively, the idea of The Machinist is you have a guy who has some sort of insomnia. You know, he's not able to sleep or rest, and every time he is about to fall asleep, you know, something wakes him up. There's a ringing, there's a bell, there's a honking. So the guy just can't get some sleep, and he starts seeing visions or seeing things, potentially real or not real. We don't know. Well, you do know. I'm not going to say what it is. This movie was interesting. This is the one with Christian Bale, where Christian Bale, you know, if you know Christian Bale, he is a person who takes his acting very seriously. There is a form of acting that I cannot think of what the term is right now, where you basically live your character's life all the time, so you can embody that character. And Christian Bale is one of those people. He does that sort of acting. And for this movie, he lost a lot of weight to embody the character of a person who is going through this insomnia, unable to sleep, unhealthy lifestyle. And it's very shocking when you see Christian looking the way he does in this film. And it makes you want to be more interested in the movie, but I felt like the movie itself felt relatively flat for me and kind of killed the thriller desire that we were kind of going through. Like, we wanted to see these thriller movies, and we've had some really good bangers up to this point where I was like, yes, this movie's great. And The Machinist kind of fell flat. So going to the next movie, I decided I wanted to watch one that I know is very good, and it's been years since I've seen it, so which was Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. Seven deals with serial killers in, I believe, New York, and basically dealing with the 7 deadly sins trope or aspect. I very much like this movie. It's such a well-made movie. I don't know if that's a proper way to say it. It's a very well-made movie with some really good scenes, interesting dialogue, and a very, very good overall sequence from the beginning to the end. And so that was kind of a good palate cleanser for The Machinist, which I felt like felt flat. But I've seen Seven, so it wasn't completely like a new experience. All the movies up to this point had been movies I had not seen before, and they were fresh experiences, and being able to experience these movies for the first time was kind of the joys and aspects. So I went back and we decided to watch a movie we'd seen because I hadn't enjoyed The Machinist up to that point. From there, I don't know how this happened. I think I was just cruising YouTube and watching I watched a lot of historical World War II. Oh yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. We did write that down. My wife just came and notified me of something I forgot. Let me write that down. So I watch a lot of historical documentation shows, World War II. I'm just a big nerd in that regard. I just eat it up. And I was watching a lot of Midway stuff. My wife was making comments of how she doesn't know much about Midway or doesn't remember what Midway was. And I was like, well, there was a 2019 release of Midway, which is actually fairly accurate to what happened in the Battle of Midway from the American perspective. Now, they do show some of the Japanese officers and naval groups, but the majority of the focus is on the U.S. Navy and their way they approached Midway. So we watched the 2019 release of Midway. I like the movie because of how historical accurate they are attempting to be. There are some minor inaccuracies here and there. But the one thing that really bothered me was the overuse of CGI because it just feels fake in several instances. At the very beginning of the movie, when they're doing the Pearl Harbor battle, there are some instances of explosions and fire and planes flying around, and it just doesn't feel real. The weight of the things that are happening around just feels artificial to that, and it continues throughout the whole movie where, you know, the planes and the ships, it just doesn't feel like there's a weight to them overall. But the actual things that are happening in the movie happened, and there's things that even you would think didn't happen truly happened. Like there's a scene where a gentleman gets into the back of a plane and uses his rear facing gun to shoot down a bomber that's coming in. That actually happened. Watching the movie, you would think this is ludicrous, this is ridiculous, but they included some of those scenes in the movie. So I appreciate that. About 3/4 of the way through the movie, my wife goes, "Oh, I've seen this movie now." I was like, "Are you freaking kidding me? You've seen it?" He goes, "Yeah, now I'm remembering this now. I actually have seen this with you." So we've seen that movie. I basically shared my thoughts on it. From there, we then watched Oppenheimer with Cillian Murphy. This one was very, very good. Very long. Very discussion, talking based film. But overall, a pleasant film. But we did have to take 2 nights to watch it. Because it's just so long. Actually, I think it took 3 nights because the second night I was so tired. We started it and we're like 20 minutes in. I'm like, I'm gonna fall asleep if we keep watching this movie. And that's the problem with movies like that, that are just kind of talky and you're just kind of going through it. Sometimes if they're so long, it can be kind of hard to stay awake. But overall, I enjoyed the film. Nothing really for me to I don't feel like I need to watch it again, which is unfortunate. It's not a movie that's like, you see it, you're like, okay, I've seen that film, and I'm good with not ever having to watch that film again. From there, we watched Invisible Man. This was more of a horror-based thriller. It's taking on and this is the new Invisible Man. I think this was a 2020 release. This was kind of taking the original, the Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, that kind of idea, but modernizing it. And I thought this was pretty good overall. It does a very good job at the director with the way the long shots are taken. They'll have a character doing something, and then the shot will pan over to a blank, empty room. As audience members, you're sitting there staring at the screen because you're looking for just a movement like that, or actually something falling down. You're like, oh, he's right there. So you're sitting there staring at the screen, but nothing happens. And so the entire movie, you're doing that until it finally does happen when a knife falls down like that. And you're like, oh shit, did you see that? Or when a burner turned on, you're like, oh man, something's happening. I will say in the beginning of the movie, I felt like the Invisible Man was being more of a hoodlum than anything truly scary. He was just being annoying, what a 15-year-old kid would be if you had the invisible power, taking pictures of someone while they're sleeping or pulling their covers off. I was like, this guy is just being kind of a troll more than anything. But the way the director shot the scene kept you captivated for the entire movie, and I very, very much enjoyed how they presented that film in a modern take. It was very, very good. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend watching it. So from there, the final movie that I watched with my wife, now these are all movies I watched with my wife, was Dune 2. We saw this in theaters, and I love this movie, guys. Dune 2, or Dune Part 2, was an incredible cinematic experience. I would highly recommend, if you haven't seen it in theaters, to see it in theaters. It is just that good. The sound design, the visual design, the storytelling, the pacing, very, very good. This is a movie that's 3 hours long, and I never at any point in the movie felt bored or questioning what was happening. The only thing that got to me was sometimes you'll have these very dark scenes and you're just kind of relaxing, and all of a sudden it's bright as hell because now it's daytime when you're in the desert, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna go blind. That actually happened a few times. I was like, holy shit, I can't see what's going on now. But overall, the movie was well done. The casting is incredible. There's only one casting choice that had me questioning their decision path, and that's because I can only see this guy. Let me get his name accurate, because I can't remember. Whoops, dude, I just had it. Dude. Christopher Walken as the Emperor was just a really odd choice for me, because all I see is Christopher Walken, especially doing some weird jive dance and whatnot. It was the only thing I didn't care for in terms of the casting choice. Other than that, Paul Atreides, the whole lineup was just so good. And there was a point, actually, hot take coming in here, where I was watching the movie and I thought, I think I enjoy this more than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Like, this is so fucking good. And I'm a huge Lord of the Rings junkie. I love the movies. I love the trilogy. I love the books. So watching this and being like, I need to read Dune. Like, I'm impressed. Like, this is a series I've never really put much thought into. And other than, some IP stuff here and there. But man, I was really impressed with Dune 2. So from there, I had 2 movies that I watched on my own. The first one was Apollo 18. My wife was out of town for the weekend, so I was watching movies on my own. Apollo 18 is a sci-fi horror movie where they go up to the moon and find something there potentially. Awful movie. Would not recommend watching it. It is part of the found footage-like movies that were very popular in the early 2000s. So if you're into found footage, which I am into found footage, that's why I decided to watch it. But the movie overall was just really poorly done in general. And the final movie that I watched was Troll on Netflix. Now, this is the recent release. It's a Norwegian-based movie. There was another Troll movie made back in 2012 that I really loved. It's also a found footage movie, and that one was very good. So I saw this one, and I was like, oh, I've already seen this. I'm like, oh, no, it's 2023 release or something like that. So I watched it. I recommend watching it in the original dub, don't watch it in English dub. But the movie is effectively, we are damaging Earth, and a troll decides to wake up out of the mountains. I don't like spoiling things, but they show that in the trailer. So that's effectively the idea. And how do we as people handle a giant troll walking around? You can figure out how you would handle that yourself. The movie was okay. It's a mid movie. I enjoyed it. Again, another movie that I would have no ever desire to watch it again. Cataloged it and move on. From there, we have TV shows that I've been watching. I watched Night Agent. This is a Netflix television series. Season 1 was on Netflix, and I watched this pretty much entirely at Dice Tower West. So at night, when all of us would go back to the hotel room and everyone would fall asleep, I was actually watching Night Agent on my iPad and on my bed. And it was one of those movies, kind of like where you're watching Game of Thrones, where the end of an episode pops up and you're just like, well, I need to know what happens. So you click next and keep going. And the next thing you know, you've watched 25 minutes into the next episode. And you're like, oh, well, it's only got 15 more minutes till the end of the series, so let me just finish this episode. Yeah, so you start binging it. So, yeah, I actually watched the entire Night Agent in the 5 days that I was at Dice Tower West. From there, I also watched Traitors Seasons 1 and 2, the U.S. version. These are on Peacock. Traitors is a reality TV show that is very much a social deduction werewolf / mafia type game where you are going to have traitors embedded in a group of survivors, and each day they're going to do some stupid game that doesn't really matter for money. Who cares about that? But then they're going to do a vote. They're going to vote someone out, and then the traitors are going to kill someone each night until there are only 4 players left alive, and they have to decide if there are any traitors still within their group or not. It's a great little fun game. It's not something to take serious. I think the rules of the game overall aren't done very well in terms of a gameplay aspect, but the social aspect of the reality TV show is fun and campy and enjoyable. There are several different iterations. You have like a UK version, they have an Australian version, they have South American, like Brazilian versions. We've just seen the US version, which is very much leaning heavily into US reality-based TV people. So if you ever watch shows like The Challenge, Real Housewives, Survivor, Big Brother, those are the type of characters you are going to see in this show. And the final thing that we are watching currently is the X-Men animated series, which is on Disney+. We started watching X-Men 97, which is the newest version. It's a continuation of the X-Men animated series. We watched the first episode, and I went, this is really freaking good. Like, I enjoyed this, but I don't know what the hell's going on. So me and my wife decided, let's go back to the 93, 92, like the first season, and now we're watching through the first season. And I'm still like, even though this is 25-year-old shows, almost 30-year-old shows, I'm very much enjoying the X-Men animated series. And I like X-Men. I think X-Men are more enjoyable for me right now than the other Marvel characters, like, the Iron Mans and the Thors. I actually like the X-Men more. I think the stories and the drama that the characters are dealing with are more human than some of the things that the like Thor deals with or Captain America deals with. The idea that if we had mutants right now in the United States, I do think what's happening in the X-Men show would happen now. Like, I think there would be bigotry. I think there would be some persecution, because how would you not be scared if someone could control the weather? Like, that is very weird, right? It would be potentially very damaging for people. So I think that fear would exist. So seeing that and how they interplay in those character developments so far in the X-Men TV series is very adult and enjoyable. Yes, it's campy at times and whatnot, but very, very good. And I'm excited to see what they do in 97 when we get to that point. I want to enjoy some of the old storylines that were told in the original animated series as we go along. Now, I forgot to mention this earlier because I didn't have it in my notes. We had some gameplays for this month. So the past 30 days, I've got here listed off. This doesn't seem right. Let me go back here. Okay, so talking about the plays that I had in the month of March. So this is starting with March 2nd. We had a ton of Star Wars Unlimited gameplays that I've had into. And I marked those as like individual games. I'm not sure if I should just do like a night. I play Star Wars Unlimited that night, or did I play 6 games? I'm not sure how I'm going to track that, because at some point it's just going to be like absurdly high numbers if I'm tracking individual plays. And then that night I also had Blood in the Clock Tower. We had 2 Blood in the Clock Tower games that occurred, and that was on March 2nd. We then played Caesar's Empire in QE. Both those games were picked up from, this was on March 16th. So I didn't track any of my gameplays, it looks like, for Dice Tower, because we have a huge gap from March 2nd to the 16th. So I didn't track any of my gameplays in Dice Tower. That's, you're too busy. And I didn't even talk about all the stuff that happened in Dice Tower, maybe because I was too focused on my enjoyment level. But we had played QE and Caesar's Empire. Both these games were picked up by my friend that went with us down to Dice Tower. He picked them up at the swap meet, so he was excited to play them. So we played those. We then had a game of Endless Winter Paleo-Americans. And we played with the Rivers and Rafts expansion for the first time, as well as the Ancestors expansion. And I enjoy Endless Winter quite a bit. But one of our players in the group, Matt, was very much, again, he doesn't like the game. He's like, no, I just don't like this game. And he brought up a good point. He goes, Brian, you win this game like almost every time we play it, and you do the exact same thing every time we play it. Like, you always do this, this, and this. Like, you don't change your formula. I'm like, yeah, because it's a winning formula, and it's a formula I enjoy doing. And I am not incentivized to do something else. But normally that reason is because everyone else is doing the other stuff. I'm like, well, I don't want to compete with you guys. Like, in the game we played, in this game, there's a kind of an area control mechanism, and both of them were like going crazy with it. I'm like, well, why am I going to do that? I'm just going to get cards and build my deck up. But I do agree with him in that sense. I rate it higher than he does, but he was pretty down on it after that. We then played another game of QE. QE is a bidding game. It requires social construct rules to be agreed upon for the game to work truly. So I think there's an inherent fault in that game. But overall, it's an okay game. We then played Marvel Champions. Me and Matt played that. Because of all the watching the X-Men, I was like, I want to play some Marvel Champions. Do you want to play it? So I'm playing a rogue deck. He's playing Gambit, and we're playing through the campaign. The campaign together. And then on March 30th, we pulled out Moonrakers. We kind of had a couples night, excluding my wife. So we had my friend and his wife, and another friend and his wife, and me. We decided to play Moonrakers. And when my wife is, because she's busy with her own work. She works from home as well. So she is either taking care of our daughter, putting her to bed, or working on her candle business. So don't think we're excluding her. I would invite her to any game night if she wanted to join us. So yeah, we played Moonrakers, we played Nomad and Overlord, my two favorite expansions from the Titan box, which is behind me. I didn't care for Binding Ties personally, but yeah, that wraps it up. So that was a long month in review. We're going to continually keep working on this kind of video format, find out what I like and where I don't like, and check the analytics and see where like things are down and up, so I can know what you guys are also mostly interested in. Again, please leave your comments in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Look forward to Friday's video. If you can, please watch that. Help the channel grow. We're kind of in a slump because of my 3 videos I released last month. So I'm kind of like, YouTube's like, time out for you. You don't know what you're doing. You got to post more videos, feed the algorithm. So I'm kind of in a timeout right now with YouTube as they're punishing me. So please, if you can, watch the videos, click the subscribe button, as well as a little bell. Help me out with that so I can get some more notifications for you guys. I think it's only like 2% of subscribers have actually clicked that bell, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, let me know. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.